Good morning. I'd like to introduce you to my family before I get started. I am doing this from home because Greg, the cameraman, is away in Maine. Alphys, could you step forward? This is Alphys, my wife.
Hello, happy holidays.
And next up is Lily or Allie. Would one of y'all step forward? Hi, that's Lily, my youngest, and Allie, the oldest. Allie, could you come forward and say hi?
Hi.
So I'd like to thank Mignon and Dr. Young M and Cindy for that beautiful introduction. This morning, a truck took the first COVID-19 vaccines out of a factory, Pfizer factory in Michigan, and began the long process of shipping and distributing those vaccines. So our long nightmare, or at least the beginnings of the end of our long nightmare, may be within our sight. And it is with that awareness that I begin our service today with great gratitude. I'm going to ask my wife, Alphys, to light our chalice flame, and as she does, I share these words. May this light symbolize letting the light in that allows us to see. May the light of understanding shine and help us see what is true and real and important. Today's sermon topic was purchased in the auction by Jim Burnham, and I'm delighted to comply with him today. I will be talking about Spinoza very briefly and more extensively about the religious ideas of Albert Einstein. Spinoza was born in 1632 in Amsterdam. It is because of people like him that we are here today, because Spinoza and those like him began to create a movement of understanding that leads to us right here and today. On July the 27th, 1656, at the age of 24, Spinoza was excommunicated by his Jewish community for his heretical beliefs. His books were later added to the Catholic Church's Index of Forbidden Books. Spinoza lived an outwardly simple life. He was an optical lens grinder, a craftsman. But he also worked all his life on the great questions of living and being human. He was born just at the first crest of the Enlightenment, that great movement of the spirit that led to human freedom or greater human freedom and liberation. He took the ideas being generated by the emergent science of the time and the ideas of the modern world, and he applied them broadly to all of life, including religion, morality, and all phases of religion. His ideas are expressed in a manner that would seem obtuse to modern readers, and so that is why today I will focus on the religious views of Einstein, who greatly admired and was inspired by Spinoza. Einstein carried forward the spirit of Spinoza, but created his own unique interpretation. In a few moments, I look forward to exploring this with you further. Thank you, Norma Jean. That was a beautiful story. And I loved that phrase, the big love. And thank you, Mignon, for your audacious experimentation this morning with the many voices. And Cindy, thank you for your warm presence as a lay leader this morning. I would like to invite you to enter into a different world that is separate from the hurly-burly and anxious-filled world that we inhabit most days during these times, and enter into an understanding of how Einstein understood religion and spirituality. I think we could find it interesting. Our culture suffers from fragmentation, specialization, compartmentalization, and a lack of unity. A scientist doesn't speak about religion, and a sociologist speaks in their own terms and with their own understanding, and is separate from religion and science quite often. And the intellectual disciplines get stuck in their own ruts and are afraid to venture out beyond the safe boundaries of their discipline. But it was not so with Einstein. He was unafraid to talk about many subjects. And although he was a genius physicist of historic proportions, he had a lot to say about religion. And he studied people who had thought about religion, such as Spinoza, all of his life. And he admired Spinoza greatly. In an interview in 1923, Einstein spoke to a Japanese magazine about his religious views as follows. "May I reply with a parable?" he said. "The human mind, no matter how highly trained, cannot grasp the universe. We are in a position of a little child entering a huge library whose walls are covered to the ceiling with books in many different languages. The child knows that someone must have written these books. It does not know who or how. It does not understand the languages in which they were written. The child notes a definite plan in the arrangement of the books, a mysterious order, which it does not comprehend, but only dimly suspects. That, it seems to me, is the situation of the human mind toward God. We see a universe marvelously arranged, obeying certain laws, but we understand the laws only dimly or partially. Our limited minds cannot grasp the mysterious force that sways the constellations. In 1930, Einstein published an essay in the New York Times Magazine entitled Religion and Science, in which he distinguished, to his mind, three human impulses that lead to religion: fear, social or moral concerns, and what he called a cosmic religious feeling. The fearful invent supernatural beings analogous to themselves, Einstein wrote. Additionally, the human desire for love and support create a need for a supreme being who is loving, moral, and connected to persons. Both of these styles are anthropomorphic in regard to their understanding of God. The third style, which Einstein deemed the most mature, originates from a sense of awe and mystery in which the individual feels, and I quote, the sublimity and marvelous order which reveal themselves in nature. And he or she, the person, wants to experience the universe as a significant whole. Einstein saw science as an antagonist to the first two forms of religious expression, but as a partner to the third type of religious understanding. A central theme of Einstein's views on religion that he states again and again, and are evidently very central to his thought, is his belief in the importance of religion to help the individual transcend either personal or group self-centeredness. In that New York Times Magazine article I mentioned earlier, he wrote, "A person who is religiously developed appears to me to be one who has, to the best of their ability, liberated themselves from the fetters of his or her selfish desires and is preoccupied with thoughts, feelings, and aspirations to which he or she clings because of their superpersonal value. It seems to me," he wrote, "that what is important is the force of this superpersonal content. Accordingly," he goes on, "a religious person is devout in the sense that he has no doubt of the significance of those superpersonal objects and goals which require nor are capable of a fully rational foundation. In this sense, religion is the age-old endeavor of humankind to become clearly and completely conscious of these values and constantly strengthen and extend their effect. If one conceives of religion and science according to these definitions, then a conflict between them appears to be impossible, for science can only ascertain what is, but not what should be." My interpretation of what Einstein is saying is that human beings need a system of values, principles, and purposes which can elevate them outside the total control of their own egotism, of their own devotion to narrow self-interest, whether this is of the individual or the group. It doesn't matter from Einstein's viewpoint if this takes the form of a personal God, as in theist traditions, or as an impersonal force, as in Buddhism, Spinoza, and Einstein. Without this supra-personal value system, humanity is lost and in trouble, and I agree with him. In his 1934 book, The World as I See It, Einstein expanded on his personal understanding of religion, how it affected him personally in the following way. A knowledge of the existence of something we cannot penetrate, of the manifestations of the profoundest reason and most radiant beauty, which are only accessible to our reason and understanding in their most elementary forms. It is this knowledge and this emotion that constitute the truly religious attitude. And in this sense alone, I am a deeply religious man. Einstein's concept of God, such as it is, did not imply that nature had a purpose that was imposed upon humanity or anything else. in a conversation with a writer in 1955 with regard to nature's purposes and its relationship to his religious ideas. He said, and I quote, "I have never imputed to nature a purpose or goal or anything that could be understood as anthropomorphic." In 1947, he stated, "I feel not able to imagine some will or goal outside what we know in human experience. Rather," he said, "my religiosity consists in a humble admiration of the infinitely superior spirit that reveals itself in the little that we, with our weak and transitory understanding, can comprehend of reality." Einstein clearly rejected traditional forms of theism. "I cannot conceive of a personal God who would directly influence the actions of individuals," he wrote. However, at the same time, he did not identify with atheism, and he stated so plainly on several occasions. In one interview, he stated, "I have repeatedly said that in my opinion, the opinion of a personal God is a childlike one. However, I do not share the crusading spirit of the professional atheist, whose fervor is mostly due to a painful act of liberation from the fetters of religious indoctrination received in youth." In another correspondence, he wrote, "The fanatical atheists are like slaves who are still feeling the weight of their chains, which they have thrown off after hard struggle. They are creatures who, in their grudge against the traditional opium of the people, cannot hear the music of the spheres." Although he did not believe in a personal God, he indicated that he would never seek to combat or destroy such belief because such beliefs, and I quote, "are preferable to a lack of any transcendental perspective." Let me try to conclude. The relationship to God and the idea of God itself are hopelessly, it seems, mired in murky obscurity, and are at most times extremely abstract to the point of meaninglessness. For Einstein, however, God, as he understood that term, was literally encountered in the structure and order of nature, which was partly understood and partly not understood. God was therefore an unknowable mystery expressed by, yet partly revealed in, nature. And so his views are somewhat akin to what we found in Dr. Ursula Goodenough's notion of having a covenant with mystery, of embracing the fact that there's a lot we don't know, but that there is mystery with which we are confronted. Humanity, Einstein wrote again and again, is responsible for working out the moral aims we choose to live by. There is not a foreordained plan that leads us to X, Y, or Z ends or goals. Our aims and goals must be in harmony with reality and nature, but we have a wide latitude in which to work out our human choices of what it means to live the good and full life. Einstein was as opposed to atheists as to traditional theists, as he understood both sides, but was clearly and strongly an affirmer of the importance of what he called a supra-personal value system that took the self out of itself toward a higher and broader and greater good than self. Einstein is one of the sources for the birth of religious naturalism. I look forward over the course of this year to speaking again about the religious legacy of Spinoza and of Einstein to make sure that Jim gets his money's worth. Thank you. As I extinguish this chalice, it is my hope that its light may continue to illumine our lives. And my benediction words to you are, may peace be in us, around us, within us, and between us as we move through this day and this week. Amen.